helps with starting the meditation as it breaks the cycle of emotions and thoughts. Close your eyes, cross your legs, clasp your hands, fingers into fingers. Just observe your normal, natural breath. It is quite normal for our mind to wander. Please try and bring the focus back to your breath. And don't worry about the mind and the internal chatter. Just bring it back to your breath. I will start the music and let us meditate for 40 minutes. Friends, slowly bring your awareness back to your body. Those who are in deep meditation, uh, feel free to continue meditating. Place your fingers on your eyes for a few seconds and feel free to open your eyes. Friends, I will now start uh, the wisdom sharing. I'm starting a new series, Powerful Life Lessons Learned as a Monk. For those of you who are not aware, I was a monk for 14 years, and there are lots of things that I've learned. I'm not going to take the lessons learned in a chronological order, but I'm going to take them in the order of their importance on the spiritual path. But before I do that, I just wanted to share an incident, an experience yesterday. For the first time, I held a meditation session at Deloitte yesterday. We had an away day in Bristol, and we had about 25 participants in the meeting itself, and about 10 to 15 participants who had joined via Zoom. And I presented the scientific benefits of meditation for about 20 minutes, and we meditated for 10 minutes. And after the meditation, the room was very, very, very quiet. And everybody actually liked the wellness session. They said, the scientific benefits of meditation that I explained were very, very good. The only complaint they had was doing meditation for 10 minutes was very hard. So all I want to say is a big, thank you to all of you who are actually meditating for hours every day and regularly. So, it is one enlightened soul once mentioned that it is easy to perform rituals. We can go to temples, we can do arti, we can actually propagate religion. If we belong to certain religion, then we can talk about that religion to others and do a lot of things. All that is very, very easy. What is difficult is to sit down regularly and meditate, just even for 1 hour. Do it every day for 3 months, 6 months, a year. That is perspiring. That is difficult. So, really a very, very good, a great thank you to all of you who are actually meditating regularly once, twice, or more throughout the day. Going back to the powerful lessons, I will start with a story. Once there was a priest, and the priest decided that he doesn't just want to give a sermon. Today he wants to actually do a practical thing, So he brought 4 jars and he brought 4 worms. In the first jar, he put in alcohol. In the second jar, he put in some smoke. In the third jar, he put in some chocolate syrup. And in the fourth jar, he put in good, clean soil. Then he put 1 worm in the alcohol, 1 worm in the smoke, 1 worm in the chocolate syrup, and the fourth worm in the clean soil. And then just after a short while, he said, now let us look at the results. So he said, the worm in the alcohol has died. The worm in the smoke jar has also died. The worm in the chocolate syrup has also died. However, the worm in the clean soil is alive. So then he instead of giving what he wanted to say, he asked the audience, "What have you learned from this?" Then an old lady got up very excitedly because she thought she had grasped the truth. And she raised her hand and she said, "Can I speak?" And the priest said, "Yes, you can speak." And the old lady said, "If you drink alcohol, if you smoke, and if you eat chocolates, worms will not come near you." So the moral of the story is we are listening to lots of wisdom sharing. We are reading a lot of spiritual books. But sometimes the understanding we gain from the discourses or the reading of the scriptures and the spiritual books is dependent on our mindset, on where we are, what our understanding is, and what we desire from life, from spirituality. So now I will talk about myself because this actually applies to me. So when I was young, I was born in Nairobi. When I was young, my mother, being a very uh, devout devotee, she used to take me to temple twice a day. Once in the morning, 6 a.m. Morning aarti. In the evening, every day at 7 p.m., we would go to the temple, and there was a discourse after the 7 p.m. aarti. We used to come back home at about 8 p.m. This was our life day in, day out. On Sundays, we went to temple 3 times. So in the morning, we would go to attend the morning aarti at 6 a.m. Then in the morning at about 9 o'clock, there would be a youth group which gets together. So I would actually go to temple and participate in the youth group. There would be a discourse there as well. And then finally in the evening, a lot of people would come from all the different distances in Nairobi, and there would be another discourse there. So I've been listening to discourses since maybe I was 4 or 5, right throughout my life. So, I've listened to the same thing hundreds and thousands of times. So, what were the concepts in my mind? The concepts I had in my mind were that there is a God who has created the entire universe. And that God is Swaminarayan. That was the sect that I was part of. And that God lives in an abode which is millions of miles away. The way that would be narrated would be it is somewhere there in the sky. Yeah. And the God sits on a throne and he is surrounded by devotees all sitting around him. If we do good deeds, if we follow his commands, and if we purify ourselves, then after death we will go to that abode and be in his service forever. So these are the concepts that I had in my mind. After coming to London, obviously I continued going to temple, but not every day because of distances. So I used to go on Saturdays and Sundays, on weekends. However, reading the scriptures, etc., was a regular activity. These concepts stayed in my mind, and eventually I decided that in my life, what I want to do is I want to attain God. So I became a sadhu. After becoming a sadhu for the first 4 or 5 years, uh, the daily routine was attending 3 to 5 aartis every day, 2 to 3 discourses every day, and the rest of the time was spent in activities relating to expanding the growing of the organization. So when you are in a bhakti sampradaya, what is uh, the indoctrination that takes place is whatever you are doing for to please God, and even growing the sanstha, expanding the sanstha is all bhakti and devotion to God. So we continue doing that. However, there wasn't the experience of spiritual progress which I had expected to take place. So I observed around me, and there were obviously a lot of devotees, but a lot of sadhus as well, monks, sannyasis. When I looked at their lives, there were only very few where I felt that they had made some good spiritual progress. So I felt that something was literally missing. After 4.5 years, I was, made a Guruji. I changed, where I used to live. Was sent to the newly initiated sadhus ashram. I was made a Guruji. I used to teach English. I used to teach world religions, and then I started teaching mysticism. The good thing that happened when I went to this new place is there was an enlightened soul. So he used to take discourses in the morning every day from about 8 to 9. And at 4 o'clock, outside his room, he would sit, and there would be just a very few of us who would sit around him and listen to what he had to say. And then he started drumming in these sort of words every single day. In his discourses, the clarity would be that, God is here and now, you believe yourself to be Brahman, etc. Yet, I've been listening to this since childhood. 98, 99% of the words that were sort of spoken about is, God is in his abode, God is in a murti, God is in a temple, God is in the guru, etc. But then there were words like this which were spoken. So I was like that lady, saying that, if you drink alcohol, if you have a chocolate, if you smoke, then worms won't come near you. So it was like those words were there, but the words which said God is within you, you are Atman, you are Brahman, etc., were there. But I just picked up the other words, and we would then generally think that after we die, we will go to some abode somewhere where God is sitting on a throne, and we will be then serving Him for eternity. However, this enlightened soul started speaking about these things, and slowly, 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 the barriers in my mind started breaking. So I thought that it initially first 3 to 6 months, it felt very, very confusing because the concepts that I had in my mind were so different to what this enlightened soul was talking about. But when you sit next to him, when you sit near him, you feel so much peace. So, it was very clear that he had attained something. In a year, about 2 years' time, some of the sadhus, we were sent to do a pilgrimage of the four dhams, Gangotri, Jamnotri, Badrikasham, and Kedarnath. So we went there, and when I returned, I prostrated to this enlightened soul. And he actually slapped me lovingly, but he slapped me. And then he asked me 4 or 5 very profound questions. First question he asked me was, do you think you are going to find or experience God in a place of pilgrimage? I was stunned by the question. The second question he asked me was, do you think you are going to find God in a place of worship, a temple, a mosque, a church, etc.? Then the third question he asked me was, do you think you are going to find God in an image? And that really shook me because all the beliefs are God is, the murtis, God is there in the murtis. Then he went one step further. He said, do you think you are going to find God in an individual, in your guru? Now, this was shocking because all my life, the only belief I had was you treat your guru as God. It is at this time that the penny dropped, that all I had been listening throughout my life was actually wrong. Then he told me, he said, look within. Everything is within. Then he narrated the example of the Kasturi Mrug, the deer. The deer smelled something very nice. The deer didn't know where the smell is coming from. So, but decided that I must find the source of this smell. It is so nice. It started roaming around the world. It roamed around, round and round, but it just couldn't find where the source of the smell was. It went on a cliff and unfortunately slipped over the cliff, fell down, and when it fell down, its nose actually went towards its navel and then realized that, oh my God, this smell was always coming from my navel. It wasn't outside at all. All my life I've been running around for looking after this smell, but actually it was within me. Then the enlightened soul said, all our lives we are looking for happiness, for God, for soul, for everything that we talk about, we are looking for without, externally. But in reality, everything is within. Jesus Christ didn't look at the sky and say, where heaven is. He said, the kingdom of God is within you. I'd been listening to what Swaminarayan had been saying for all my life. It is at that time I remembered the words of Swaminarayan in one of his discourses in Sarangpur 10, where he says, those who believe that Golok, Vaikut, Shwetdip, and Brahmpur, these are names of God's abodes, are millions of miles away. Those who think Golok, Vaikut, Brahmpur, and Shwetdip are millions of miles away, their understanding is false, meaning it does not exist. The concept that heaven is somewhere outside, millions of miles away, and when we leave our bodies, we are going to go to some heaven, that understanding is completely false. Then he said, those who believe that they are the soul, Atman, Brahman, consciousness, universal consciousness, distinct from the body, for them, God and his abode are not even an atomic distance away. So do we understand what an atomic distance is? If we look at a pinhead, that pinhead has got 5 trillion hydrogen atoms. 5 trillion. So that means that whatever concept we have, God, Atman, Brahman, universal consciousness, is all within, is what we truly are. So the first most powerful life lesson I learned was everything is within. Whatever we are seeking for, stop seeking it outside. Seek it within. So what happened after understanding this, after the penny dropped? So I was part of a religious organization. So you continue obviously going to the artis and the discourses. But when you attend the artis or when you attend the discourses or when you read your spiritual books, the understanding is whatever is being talked about is all within. We stop seeking outside. We stop clinging to scriptures, to guru, to murti, to anything that is external. Because in reality, in the truth, everything is within. So friends, thank you very much for listening to this session. Next week, the session that I'm going to take is stop trying to become, just be. Stop trying to become, just be. If anyone has any questions or would like to share any of their experiences or wisdom, please feel free to unmute yourself. Please it would be great if you actually are able to turn on your video as well. Thank you very much.
Yes, I see Mrudulaji. Yeah, kindly go ahead.
Okay. Um, well, your talk was so good, Dinesh ji.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to share something that I don't think I've ever shared anywhere. I noticed that in my 20s and 30s, that everybody is comfortable in their own ways. Some people are comfortable speaking their own language. Some people are comfortable going to their own church, temple. There's a comfort there, and it's really hard to get out of that comfort zone. When I was younger, I grew up in, in a town that didn't have any Indian people. And when we went to this place, I couldn't understand the languages because my parents just wanted to socialize with an Indian crowd. And everybody spoke different languages, and I just couldn't understand. Right away, I felt left out. So I think one of the things for human beings is to feel connected, you
Yes,
know, and the only connection they can find is the language, the religion, and whatever the upbringing. So I grew up with this, of feeling separate. I thought, how come I am left out? What is it? So I tried to learn the languages if that made me feel included. I learned about different religions. I actually was with someone that wanted me to become Catholic. So 2 years in evening school, I took Bible classes
very good.
to find out, could I connect with him better? How come it's so separate? How come I'm going out with him, but yet he thinks differently than me? You know, how is this separateness happening when we're human beings? So when I'm listening to the classes in the Nishti, I'm hearing the same stories that my aunt used to tell me about the Gita.
Yes,
All the same stories, just different names, you know. And as you said, Christ never said there's a heaven and hell. We are it. He never said he's born a Jewish man. He never said become Christians. That just happened because human beings said so.
yes,
And in the I asked the priest, when Christ comes back from when he dies, he comes back. Only the few people that know him recognize him. How come, that sounds like reincarnation to me? It sounds like he's in a different body, so only people
possible.
that know him. So all these are just, I feel like they're just like a smoke screen for us to be comfortable. So that's why, even on the Beam family, I say it's really important to not get into those separate us when we talk about our religion, our language, and try to communicate, because then we're only reaching out to those people. We're not reaching out to everyone. And I don't know how, it's just, I think it's really hard to get out of that comfort zone. So the only thing we can do is keep trying to let people know that everything is the same and that everything is inside us. And you're right, even when I tell my friends here, they don't want to sit for even 10 minutes of meditation. So I saw this like 30-second, I said, can you give your 30 seconds? So I started posting the 30 seconds on Beam Family, because you just have to look at that and just be in silent mode, as a beginning.
Yes,
So I really love it that you explained that so clearly, that, um, it's just, I don't know how we all as human beings became like this, but we don't have to be. We all have the same desires and nature inside. We're all capable of love. We all get hurt. We all have sadness. We all have fear. But the strength is also inside us, you
true.
know, and that comes from meditation. And, as when you were, you touched a little bit about it, you always think there's something outside, like even a guru,
Yes,
somebody can give you the strength. But I think we're our own strength. So And in all my, reaching out to everything that I could reach out in the, over 25 years, I reached the same place you did, Dinesh.
Thank you.
So, I found the same, truth for myself. And so, but everybody has to find it for themselves in their own time.
Yes. And yes, very,
Thank
very, very true. Thank you. And it all sort of comes out of meditation. The more we meditate, uh, and have an understanding that whatever is within, meditation plus an understanding sort of helps the spiritual growth and us to mature spiritually very quickly.
So thanks a lot, Dinesh, for this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful wisdom sharing. When you started sharing your journey, it resembled, and I remembered part of my journey, because even my journey started in a similar way, where my father used to take me to temples, to every spiritual guru, to every spiritual organization, bhajans, nagar sankirtans, whatnot. So later on, I never felt that God is there where I was taken. I always felt I was forced to go as a kid, so I was just doing it out of, what parents wanted me to do. But somehow I always had this understanding somewhere that this is not where I need to be. And thanks to even my parents again, later they connected to meditation, and and they and then I really felt this is the right thing.
Yes, very good.
Let's say my journey continued, and I have to say, even though I started meditating, yes, probably I was preparing from inside myself, but only after 10 years, when I started reading books, that many of the boundaries that were still there, many of the beliefs that were still there, only disappeared just out of reading books.
Very good.
So I still remember The White Book by Ramta. It was such a tough book for me. It took almost 6 months, but I said, I have to go. I have to go. And as I kept reading it, every day I wake up, I was a different person. I could sense a something opening from inside. So, you know, it's a beautiful journey once we connect to this reality, that everything is just readily available, and as you said, just at an atomic distance. And today, when you were sharing that particular part, when you said you returned from the Chardham, and then the enlightened one asked you these 4 questions. As you were sharing this, I had an experience which was amazing, that everything in the screen disappeared. Only you appeared almost physically in front of me, and everything around here disappeared. There were words that were so beautifully resonating inside as you were talking. So thanks a lot for this beautiful experience you have given.
Thank you.
So very beautiful, Dinesh.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for sharing your very similar journey, very similar journey. So, thank you, everyone. So, yeah, does anyone
So
else?
I also wanted to share when Ram was sharing. Growing up, my parents would take me to the temple, and I grew up in an all Christian community. So I used to go with my friends, and there's a thing called confirmation at 16 where they become Christians after reading the. And then, of course, I went to the mosque. I even went to the Jewish temples. I somehow, like all these seemed, again, I felt isolated and I didn't feel connected because these were external sources. The only thing that I could connect with was when I meditated, and my strength came for that these past 10 years. We all search. I guess it's a process that we all must go through, or whatever our heart tells us. And the other thing is, one of the reasons I post quotes from many, many sources, as you can see, Leo Tolstoy is Russian, and they're German people. They're people from all over the world that are, saying the same thing. Hafiz said the same thing, that our thoughts create our home, in what, 1600s, before the scientists came and said thoughts create reality.
Yes.
So I just want people to know that inside it's the same. When we seek, we find the same truth inside. There's no difference. Outside, we're creating all these, religions, languages, countries, boundaries, nationality. But inside, when you see all these people from no connections, they have no connections to each other, but they're saying pretty much the same thing. And I want people to know that it's just not, I know India is very rich in culture and has a great history, but the feeling inside, it doesn't have to come from people from India alone. It's coming from all over the world. There are people in, starting, in centuries behind. So I just want that feeling of oneness for everyone. That and I really, it's so nice that Madhu and Ram think the same way. That we can share that in the groups. And just invite all your friends to join these sessions, because sometimes in the WhatsApp groups, we cannot discuss like this. It's hard to, share big, big messages like this. So whoever's on, just encourage all your friends to join, because this is a place to talk about what's going on, how we can help, how we can share, and of course, your sessions, Dinesh ji. I mean, they're really thought provoking, and hopefully many people will join and start sharing.
Thank you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. If there is anyone else who would like to either share any of their experiences, please feel free to do so. There is there is one question in the chat. If all religions believe God is sitting on a throne somewhere in the sky, could that not be the case? That is a very valid question. And my response is all the so first let's take all the religions and their founders. Yeah, all the founders of those religions have also spoken about the fact that the kingdom of God is actually within you. All of them have spoken like that. So this enlightened soul used to give a good story about this. So he would say is, if there is a ton of sand and there are only a few granules of sugar mixed in that sand, the ant will be able to find those granules. The ant will be able to find the granules in a ton of sand, whereas we wouldn't be able to find it. So when the founders need to talk about this to the masses can only understand what is in space and time. We are looking at our bodies, and there is space. We to go from London to Mumbai or London to New York, there is space and there is distance. We live in a home, so we think about an abode. Somebody, our concept of a king is sitting on a throne. So they had to talk in the language which the common person will be able to understand, and that is how they've explained this to us. For them to lead a better life, they spoke about abodes. They said, become righteous, do ethical things, have morals. So to bring them out of a very animalistic life, they wanted to bring them into a human life. They talked about an abode. So they said, if you do good things, then you will go to God's abode. So, but however, having said that, there were obviously some mature spiritual seekers, and for them, they said, the kingdom of God is within you. And the group here is serious spiritual seekers, and for us, that is the truth. And the reality is, when they talk about Brahman, it is beyond space and time. And in the Upanishads, the Vedas, it is also written that the experience of Brahman is where speech and thought turns back. Speech and thought cannot describe our true nature. So it is beyond speech and thought, beyond space and time. So thank you, everyone.
I'm sorry, Dinesh ji, I have a request. Once you finish this series, can you I hear you talk about the Vedanta a lot.
Yes.
Vedanta is before religions, before we had these, before even Hinduism or any of the religions came into play.
So Vedanta is before any of the temples were present, any of
Yeah,
the cults were present, any organizations were present. It is the correct. It is our true foundation.
yeah, and it's so amazing that I just want, if you have the time and energy, once you finish these series, when you have time, because I hear you talk about Vedanta. I know very little about the Vedanta.
Yes.
And I agree with you. Humanity was so young at that time. They needed a godlike, some deity to pray to, a symbol, and all these relics we have.
Yes.
Not in India, all over the world, they prayed. The Greeks prayed to gods, the Egyptians prayed to gods, because they needed to look at something like themselves, or something that didn't look like themselves, that were godly. Whatever they imagined it to be was God.
Yes.
But Vedanta was all before that. It's the only thing I found in all my reading, which I have a little time. But if you have time, Dinesh ji, just when you get done with this course, I'm requesting.
Yes.
If,
We'll do a series on Vedanta.
yeah, I would love that, because that's before any of the religious buildings, any of the doctrines, any of the separateness came. It's the only thing that talks about oneness.
Correct. We will do a series on Upanishads, on Vedanta. So thank you, everyone. Next week, stop trying to become, just be, and I will explain why we are constantly trying to become. Even after when listening to discourses, it's all about becoming, less about being, and it is in our spiritual endeavors, it's more about being rather than becoming, and I will explain that next week. So thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for attending, and hope to see you next Wednesday.
Thank you, Dinesh. And thanks everyone for joining. And thanks Mridula ji for a nice request, so we can all listen to Dinesh ji's wisdom. And friends, have a wonderful time, and we meet back tomorrow morning 6 a.m. for a meditation session. Till then, namaste.